Today we have the chance to get to know the President's Forum's newest member, Dr. Mike Flores, who serves as the Chancellor of the Alamo Colleges district in Texas. The degree of alignment between Alamo and the President's Forum is striking, and we'll feature that alignment in our discussion today. I think you'll enjoy this conversation with one of the most committed and innovative higher education leaders in the country. Let's get right to it. Welcome to the President's Forum, Mike.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here, Wes.
We are really thrilled to have you as our newest member. And today we're going to, this episode is just dedicated to getting to know you and getting to know Alamo Colleges district.
Okay.
And so we'll start from the beginning, if that's okay.
Sure. Sounds good.
Tell us a little bit about how you ended up in higher education.
Oh, wow. I would say that initially my plans were to become an attorney, right? So majored in political science, both a bachelor's, master's degree. And then I thought, well, I don't know if I want to go to law school, and then end up looking at contracts and doing all those other things. So I thought I wanted something more engaging, something that was definitely much more human-centered and a positive nature, right? So ended up in education. My father actually worked in higher ed and community-based work and then higher education. So I guess I followed his path in a way, and have been here now close to 3 decades, close to 30 years, right?
Wow.
In higher ed, whether in a university setting, obviously most intently now in the community college space, and then started in nonprofit sector, but in education as well. So 30 plus years in higher education focused on supporting students.
Nice. Well, speaking of supporting students, a lot of our listeners don't know the values of your institution, but I can say the very first value listed on your website is students first.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about how that value has shaped your work, especially with regard to adult learners and working learners, which is, a huge focus for the President's Forum. But tell us a little bit about that students first value.
Right. I think, one of the most critical things, and I'm glad, first of all, and excited to be part of the President's Forum and to convene and be prompted, right? And also that catalytic impact that it's going to be with working with colleagues of similar size institutions, also looking at innovation and how to serve adult learners better. I think that is really where we're at an inflection point in the U.S.
Right.
And in higher ed is how can we come full circle in supporting them. For us at Alamo, we're a big distributed organization with physical campuses, right? So we have 5 colleges, we have 8 what we call ETSIs, education and training centers, that are much more embedded in the community. And then we have other options, whether that's business to business and providing training, right, for employers or upskilling. And then we have what we call Alamo Online, which is our online program that supports 16,000 of our 80,000 learners. And then we have something new that's called Alamo U, which are 4 baccalaureate degrees that are workforce oriented. I'd like to spend a little bit of time on those last 2, right? Alamo U and Alamo Online,
Okay.
In particular, because we know that working adults have many demands on their time, that they're looking for convenience with regard to engagement with higher education institutions. And they want to be able to be on a pathway to earning a credential. So that they can provide for themselves and their families, and also be competitive, not only in the job hire, but also in promotions and being competitive for higher earnings, right? So Alamo Online, those 16,000 students, 2/3 of them are largely female. They actually have an average of 2 children, and
Wow.
They're most active and engaging with us from 9 p.m. to 12 midnight. Meaning that
Sounds about right.
Yeah, that sounds about right, right? I look at it and think about it personally, right? So the kids are bathed, they're fed, they've done their homework themselves, they're in bed or getting ready for bed. And so that actually gives you some time to compose yourself and get ready to study. And that's what we see with our students in Alamo Online, is being able to do that. I would say that we provide supports for those students, not only in instruction and engaging with the faculty member, but also wraparound supports outside of the classroom, engaging with tutoring that's available 24/7, right? Whether that's ours or with a partner, also being able to connect if they need basic needs supports through our advocacy centers and doing that online, either through chat, right, IM, or through email, or actually even through conversations that you're having with individuals at 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. at night, right?
Right.
To
Right.
be able to get those supports when they come front and center. Then, if we pivot from Alamo Online, that's also integrated to Alamo U, the state gave authority to the 50 community colleges within Texas to offer workforce oriented baccalaureate degrees.
Okay.
So we have a BSN, we have two in IT, one in cloud computing, one in cybersecurity, and one in operations management.
Nice.
By design, we set those up to be attractive to working adults and to adult learners, because those are on flex terms. Those are in 8-week terms. You can either come on to campus in a physical classroom, but most definitely you're going to engage online and virtually as well. So having quarters or 8-week terms, being able to determine what way you want to receive the education, interact with the faculty member. And also, we set all of those degrees up, with the exception of the BSN, because that's highly specialized, but the two IT degrees and the management degree to be essentially 3+1, meaning that you could go to any one, right, of our colleges, our 5 colleges,
Right.
for the first 3 years, and then take your senior year at the degree granting college, right?
Okay.
So, for instance, Palo Alto College has a Bachelor of Applied Technology and Management. You could go to any one of our 4 colleges and get those 90 hours at those 4 colleges, transfer to Palo Alto College for your senior year to get your bachelor's degree in management.
Okay. And
So,
what's the proximity within
oh,
all of
within
your
all of
physical
them.
locations?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's probably 30 to 45 minutes driving, right? And I'm
Okay.
assuming that our students have dependable transportation, but the intent is to be as convenient as possible. And the other part is looking at portfolios and competency-based education, right? So granting working adults with credits for the competencies that they can demonstrate or have already demonstrated in the workforce.
Right. Right. Love that. Well, when you say students first as a value,
Yes.
I mean, you're saying first. What are the priorities that come after students first? I mean, if you were prioritizing students, have you ever been in a situation where you're saying, look, I understand why that, would be an interest, but
Right.
because we put students first, we have to put them above that priority.
Yeah, I mean, that is our first priority, right? So students first and student success. I say that is student success is a team sport within Alamo Colleges,
Okay.
right? That's all of us coming together to have that student-centric point of view. It's a student POV in which we design with students first in mind, right?
Right.
Make sure that we're doing that. The example about those workforce-oriented baccalaureate degrees and
Mm-hmm.
ensuring that they're kind of chunked out in 8-week terms, that
Love that.
ensures convenience, right? Being able to ensure you could start at one point for 75% of the degree, and if you have to physically go to that degree granting college for your senior year, that you can do that, right? But largely those are all online. So it is, how can we make things more convenient? How do we, from the end in mind, consult with colleges, with focus groups, with them through surveys, right, and conversations, and engage them to make sure what we're designing, utilizing design thinking, actually gets us to that point with a product or a program credential that they would be more apt to enroll in, but most importantly, be successful in.
Huge difference between planning around students as opposed to planning around faculty.
Right.
I mean, there's just a massive difference. And I think that it's been the other way around for most of the existence of higher education. So
Right.
it's really great to see.
Yeah.
And working learners we're seeing have a lot more access now than
Right.
they've ever had before. Just to your point, 9 to midnight is when you see a lot of your students active.
Yes.
That's impossible if you don't have access orientation in your, creation of programs.
Right. Yeah, definitely. So it's a shift, it's a paradigm shift, right? And being able to begin with the student point of view in mind and then to build towards that.
Right.
So I think that's critical. And then utilizing various engagement mechanisms to ensure that that we're effective and continuing to refine whatever has been developed along the way.
Right. Right. Another one of your values is data informed.
Right.
And I love this value. I think that it's mirrored at the President's Forum in that, we talk a lot about accountable innovation. The idea of, innovation for innovation's sake doesn't really do anything. It has to be accountable to student success. You have to see better outcomes and better data because of the innovation that's been implemented.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about how data informed as a value has changed the way that you operate at Alamo. What does that mean for you?
So, data informed is one of our key values or core values. Essentially means that we're utilizing that to inform our process, right? So, in working with students and supporting faculty, that we're looking at either leading, right, or lagging indicators, kind of what does that look like now, rather than at the end when it is too late. So those leading indicators, whether that's in the course or whether that is at the end, how do we refine that process? One of the things that we use, because we're big and distributed, right, is we like to beta test things in particular and look at those those leading indicators to determine if that should be brought to scale. We actually utilize methodology. It's three-step process, right? It's discovery, incubation, and then acceleration. But we want to do the discovery first. So doing a landscape analysis, like, is there something, looking at what the problem is, right? Then what's our case statement? Then let's look around and see, has anybody addressed that within our universe in Alamo? Or are there others external to Alamo that have found solutions to that particular issue? Then as part of that, then let's incubate, right? Let's formulate a solution. Let's determine what that looks like at one site, meaning probably one of the colleges. And then if that works out well, looking at leading indicators, then let's kind of bring it to scale and accelerate at that one site. From there, then we can take it to all 5 of the colleges from that beta test college to be able to determine that. And I think that's what's most helpful. Our intent in being data informed is really, if it works with one group, with the then a design principle is you really have to bring it to scale across the entire Alamo College system.
Right. That makes total sense. Tell us a little bit about how you have implemented that with regard to student success.
Yeah.
Achievements in student success, completion rates, things like that. What have you seen?
So I think most intently, right, one is our academic advising system, which is being able to pair and partner with an academic advisor from the student's first to their final semester when they get their credential. We beta tested that, our academic advising system, Case Manage, with one advisor supporting a caseload of over 300 students, right, and looked at that. But the same advisor working with that student all the way through. At that time, close to 8 years ago, students were graduating with a 60-hour associate degree with about 88 credit hours, right? That's a lot. So that's a lot of money, a lot of courses. That's a lot of delayed time.
Right.
So looking at that beta test at Palo Alto College, then we were charged, right, with bringing that to scale, utilizing kind of that methodology of discovery, incubation, and acceleration. Engaged over 300 stakeholders, whether that was students, faculty, or staff, with a national partner to be able to develop an academic advising system across the board, across Alamo. That has really helped us in which ensuring that our 170 advisors, through serving our students throughout our region, right, have the same training, have the same interface, the same student learning outcomes across the system and supporting close to 80,000 students. What we have seen then is that's driven down the time to degree, and that's also driven down the number of credit hours. So students are now graduating with 63 and a half credit hours
Ooh,
for the
love it.
60-hour degree. And time to degree in the last 6 years has dropped from 4 years, 2 months to 3.5 years. So that as well, right? Time to degree and a number of credit hours is mostly in line with where we need to be, considering 2/3 of our students are part-time, but they're only, Wes, taking the courses that they need.
Right.
So I think when we look at, right, one is how can we implement systems that are student centric? And then how can we be mindful that we're making progress along the way? And what is the ultimate benefit to students? So we know students are graduating sooner, right? More students thus are able to graduate because time is the enemy of degree completion. And more students are either going into the workforce, earning more, or they're transferring to university.
Yeah, that's fantastic progress that you're making there. Saving time, saving money,
Yes.
getting students into the workforce with a credential faster than they would otherwise be there. That's the name of the game. Tell us a little bit about, I want to transition to that,
Sure.
career development side, the career readiness programs that you're working on. I also would love to understand, that focus means that you have to have good partnerships with
Right,
employers
right.
and with industry.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about what you're doing in that arena.
Yeah, most definitely, Wes. I think one of the things to be mindful of is many of our students are first generation, right? And they may not have the social capital in particular to network. One is the exploration phase of careers. What does that look like? What am I interested in? What would I be able to pursue? And how can I catapult myself into the American middle class, right? So they don't have that social capital. So it's really incumbent upon us as a college system to help formalize that social capital at scale. So what we've done is we call it Alamo Experience, in which we are kind of giving our students that opportunity. Each student at 45 credit hours working with our academic advisor or with job developers should have a significant experiential learning opportunity that is career and pathway focused by that checkpoint, right? Making sure you
Right.
have that. And there are many ways that we do that at scale. So one is either through our work study program, not only on campus, but under the first Trump administration, we received the wherewithal to do private sector work study. So we're also
Nice.
placing students into private sector employment. We've sought to expand that for students that may not qualify for federal financial aid. So we have what's called Alamo on the Job, in which we directly pay the wages. That's about a $3 million expenditure that we pay the wages for our students to go into private sector employment. Often those are also small businesses, right, which we know fuel our economy, to be able to do that. And talking with employers, I think, is particularly key, in which we see that the students are super successful in that organization. And we know largely that, only 40% of job postings are ever publicized. So if we can get our student into that organization, chances are they're actually going to be hired on if they've done a great job.
Right.
So those are the ways that we're seeking to do that. So either utilizing existing federal resources, realizing that the key for success for many of our students is the public sector, whether we did that under the federal work study waiver under Trump 1, or we do it ourselves and institutionalizing some of those costs in Alamo on the Job. And then we partnered with our Economic Development Foundation, which is called Greater SATX. And they utilize the U.S. Chamber of Commerce's talent pipeline management system. So
Okay.
that has then helped us provide kind of a methodology to ensure that our students are kind of pathed into those key sectors. One of the things that we've done in working with Greater SATX or with local chambers is a case study that was actually featured by the U.S. Chamber with EY, in which they have a physical presence here in San Antonio. They were looking at their jobs, and they were looking also at talent gaps and figured that in order to hire more individuals to fill those talent gaps, they would have to hire associate degreed individuals. And so they recalibrated one of their entry level jobs. They've hired over 100 of our graduates or recent graduates into EY. And then those individuals as associates, yes,
with an associate's degree. I
with
mean,
an
they've come
associate's
on.
degree, and they're then supervised by an individual who has a baccalaureate or master's degree, right? To ensure that then they're onboarded and successful as emerging professionals within EY. And the other part then is there's tuition reimbursement for them to pursue their bachelor's degree if they so choose to continue their kind of professional pathway.
Kind of a nice virtuous cycle there.
Great virtuous cycle. And I think the wonderful thing is it gives value to an individual with an associate's degree that may not even be on the workforce side, right? So I think that's the other part that's really key. So what I would leave with, I guess, is one is what are the ways that we can utilize existing resources? What are the ways we can leverage those insights to then perhaps utilize our institutional resources? And always being able to work with partners within the community, whether those are public sector partners like Greater SATX or private sector like EY, Toyota, or others. So I have plenty of examples that could probably cover a lot of time, but I just want to give you kind of a flavor for what that looks like for us here in San Antonio.
Yeah, very robust. Well, I know that another issue that you're very dialed into, and you have to be because of the students you serve. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing in affordability to create more accessibility to higher ed.
Sure. I think one of the things is being able to utilize our scale and realizing, right, that the economy of San Antonio and our region begins in our classrooms. And so one of the things is looking at data once again, right, being data informed. We saw that high school graduates, their college going rate 6 years ago was 48%. And we know that to be competitive as a community, we need to create more post-high school completers credentials, right? Post-high school completers. So we formed a steering committee, the mayor, the judge, chambers, my transfer university partners, school district superintendents, got a good cross-section of folks together. We looked at what were ways other communities, right? Actually, we're helping to address this challenge or crisis. Did landscape analysis, visited our friends at Dallas College in Dallas County, learned about their Promise program, went to Knoxville, to Tennessee, looked at their statewide program. And from those engagements and those learnings, we brought it back home to our steering committee, and they said, why don't you create a Promise program for Bexar County and then let's figure out how we can resource that. So that's been one of the ways through what we call Alamo Promise, Wes, that we've been able to increase the college going rate in Bexar County, in our county, from 48% six years ago to 56% now.
Wow.
So an 8-point jump.
It's really moving the dial.
It's moving the dial quite a bit. We've increased our freshman class over the last 6 years by 72%. Right, as part of that. And so that is a gap that we identified to be able to do that at scale within our county, and to go from 25 high schools to then all 73 public high schools, to include charters, opportunity youth, all of those segments. If you get your high school diploma or HSC within the current year, then you can enroll in Alamo Promise. The other thing that we saw, which is critical for adults, right, whether they're underemployed, unemployed, is high school equivalency attainment. And for us, unfortunately, 18% of our population do not have a GED or high school diploma. So we used to only offer the GED classes at 3 of our colleges. So we brought that to scale at all 5. We waived the testing fee to be able to provide that. You asked about access earlier. So we know that cost is always a barrier to access for our neighbors and
Huge
potential
barrier.
learners, in our community. So one, through Alamo Promise, alleviating the cost of education for recent high school graduates. Two, for 18% of our adult population, right? We want to eliminate that cost, provide them with supports, and then provide access throughout the county to do that. So whether it's our funds, and then also now being one of the keys for Texas workforce funds and high school equivalency as well. And then the third, which is really big, is I think for upskilling. So our city has a $200 million job training initiative funded through sales tax. It's called Ready to Work. And we're one of the prime partners on that.
Nice.
We can see the increase in wages. When students come into us, they're predominantly women, predominantly have 2 kids. They're earning $21,000 annually, right? So they're struggling. Right. And when they exit with a credential from us, they're earning, it doubles at $42,000.
Oh, very nice.
Yes.
Very nice. Those are great outcomes. Well, I love that you have so much to share with regard to best practice, because we have so many institutions that are, that are learning from each other. This is going to be a great add as far as forum membership. Let me conclude with this last question. As you know, a huge part of the President's Forum's work revolves around innovation.
Yes.
And there's this promise of innovation, that innovation drives down costs and improves student outcome when deployed correctly. So tell us from your perspective, what innovations are you excited about right now? What's on the horizon that you believe will, fundamentally transform the value proposition in higher education?
I think the innovation that will both transform the value proposition, but actually appeal to working adults. I think that is a key driver that we need to look at. What is the juxtaposition between what adults are currently doing in their workplace, and how can we give value to that to earn a credential? Whether it's certificates, specific courses, getting all the way to a credential. So I think that's really the key between the private and the public sector for the benefit of we would say the learner or the employee, for them to be able to get that. So that's what I'm most excited about in learning from my colleagues in the President's Forum. And that sense of innovation, of what are innovative practices they've deployed to be able to do that for the benefit of that individual.
So if I dial into that, are you talking, credit for prior learning, being able to get working learners through education faster by giving them the opportunity to show what they've learned in the workforce or in the military, wherever they've been or had experience, being able to translate that into education that can advance them towards a credential?
Yeah, most definitely giving value and affirming what an individual has done for many years in the workplace and giving them credit for that. I think that's one. I think the other is actually that praxis is really looking at apprenticeship degrees, right? I think at scale, and being able to beta test that by economic sector. What does that look like in healthcare for somebody that's working 40 plus hours? And how can we embed certain skill sets that they still need to master and give them credit for that? And what does that look like? So I'm excited about doing that and trying to bring that to scale, but I'm most excited about learning from my colleagues in the form of what they've done to be able then to benefit workers and individuals in our community, because unless we provide that access point, they're not going to get that credential.
Right. Well, Mike, we're thrilled to have you at the President's Forum, and I know I speak for the rest of the presidents that are engaged here, that they're very excited to learn from you and see what you've done and add your voice to the forum and be able to improve higher education together. So thanks for joining, and thanks for being with us today.
All right. Thank you, Wes. Appreciate it.